God's chosen ones. There is a sound rising in the realm of faith, a call that stirs the heart and awakens the spirit. It is a reminder that selection is not accidental and purpose is not random. Those who walk in faith understand that calling is often wrapped in seasons of waiting, shaping, and quiet endurance. From the beginning, those set apart were marked not by ease, but by trust. The sacred writings declare that many are called, but few are chosen, and this choosing is not about favoritism, but about readiness of heart. To be chosen is to be entrusted, to be prepared to carry weight, responsibility, and influence beyond personal desire. This is why the journey often feels heavy, because greatness in the kingdom is forged through perseverance, humility, and obedience. Throughout sacred history, provision followed purpose. When a calling was revealed, supply was released. Abraham was called to leave familiarity, and provision met him on the road of obedience. Isaac sowed in famine and reaped abundantly because the promise was active even in scarcity. Joseph endured betrayal, imprisonment, and silence before resources and authority were placed into his hands. These accounts reveal a pattern: preparation precedes overflow. The blessing is never detached from assignment. Wealth, increase, and influence are tools placed into the hands of those who will steward them with wisdom and reverence. As it is written, "The blessing of the Lord makes rich, and he adds no sorrow with it." Proverbs 10:22. There are moments when faith must rise higher than logic. Chosen ones often stand at the intersection of promise and delay, where doubt whispers and fear attempts to dominate. Yet faith declares that provision is not determined by present appearance, but by eternal word. The unseen realm responds to belief anchored in truth. The scriptures remind us that faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. Hebrews 11:1. This substance is not imaginary. It is spiritual reality forming before it manifests in the natural. What has been spoken over your life is not void. Every promise is active, moving, and awaiting alignment. Increase is often misunderstood as merely financial, but in the economy of faith, it begins internally. Wisdom increases before resources multiply. Character expands before capacity grows. Vision deepens before doors open. When the heart is aligned, provision follows. This is why the sacred text urges believers to seek first the kingdom and righteousness, with the assurance that all necessary things will be added. Matthew 6:33. Addition is a divine response to alignment. When motives are purified and purpose is clarified, resources flow without striving. Those chosen are often tested in secrecy before they are celebrated publicly. The wilderness seasons refine discernment and strip dependency on external validation. David was anointed long before he was appointed. His oil came early, but his throne came later. In the hidden years, courage was developed, faith was exercised, and trust was strengthened. When increase finally arrived, it did not corrupt him immediately because he had been shaped by surrender. This reveals why delay is sometimes mercy. Without preparation, abundance can destroy what calling was meant to build. As written, "For whom the Lord loves, he disciplines." Hebrews 12:6. Provision, released to the chosen, is never meant to terminate on self alone. It is designed to flow outward, touching families, communities, and generations. The promise spoken to Abraham included blessing, so that he would become a blessing. Genesis 12:2. This principle remains unchanged. Resources in faithful hands become instruments of restoration, healing, and hope. True abundance carries responsibility. It feeds the hungry, lifts the oppressed, and advances righteous causes. When wealth is governed by faith, it becomes a testimony rather than a temptation. There is also a call to discern timing. Not every opportunity is divine, and not every delay is denial. Wisdom is required to recognize when to move and when to wait. The writings say there is a time for every purpose under heaven. Ecclesiastes 3:1. Chosen ones must be sensitive to direction, understanding that premature movement can hinder promise. Patience is not passive, it is active trust. While waiting, preparation continues, faith grows, and clarity sharpens. Fear often rises when change approaches. Expansion demands courage because it stretches comfort zones and challenges familiar patterns. Yet the word consistently commands strength and courage, reminding believers not to be afraid because presence goes with them wherever they go. Joshua 1:9. Courage is not the absence of fear, but obedience in spite of it. Those selected for greater stewardship must walk forward even when the path feels uncertain, trusting that guidance accompanies obedience. Faith also requires generosity before abundance is visible. Sowing precedes harvesting. The principle of seed time and harvest remains a spiritual law. Genesis 8:22. What is released in faith creates room for increase. Giving is not loss, it is alignment with divine order. The writings teach that those who sow generously reap generously. 2 Corinthians 9:6. This generosity is not limited to finances but includes time, compassion, forgiveness, and service. A generous life creates fertile ground for provision to flourish. Chosen ones are often misunderstood. Vision places them ahead of their time, and obedience sets them apart from prevailing culture. This isolation can feel painful, but it is purposeful. Separation refines focus and protects calling. The scriptures remind believers that they are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood called to proclaim light. 1 Peter 2:4-9. Royalty carries authority, but also accountability. With elevation comes scrutiny, and with influence comes responsibility. As provision increases, humility must deepen. Pride precedes downfall, but humility sustains elevation. Proverbs 16:18. Remembering the source of every good gift guards the heart from arrogance. Gratitude anchors the soul in truth. When remembrance is practiced, faith remains steady even in abundance. The writings repeatedly call people to remember where help came from, especially in seasons of plenty, so hearts do not drift into self-reliance. Deuteronomy 8:18. There is also restoration attached to the journey of the chosen. What was lost, delayed, or stolen is not forgotten. The promise of restoration speaks of recompense beyond original measure. It is written that years consumed can be restored. Joel 2:25. This restoration is not merely replacement, but redemption, where loss becomes testimony and pain becomes purpose. Nothing surrendered in obedience is ever wasted. As doors open and resources align, discernment becomes essential. Not everyone connected to the calling is meant to walk into the next season. Boundaries protect purpose. Even the wisest leaders surrounded themselves with counsel, yet guarded their assignments carefully. The writings affirm that plans succeed with counsel. Proverbs 20:18. Yet wisdom discerns which voices carry truth. Chosen ones must remain anchored, refusing to compromise values for expansion. Faith-filled expectation shapes outcomes. What is believed internally influences what manifests externally. The scriptures declare that, as one thinks in the heart, So one is Proverbs 23:7. Renewed thinking creates capacity for increase. Limiting beliefs restrict flow, but truth expands vision. This is why meditation on the Word is emphasized, as it transforms mindset and aligns perspective with promise. Joshua 1:8. As the journey unfolds, gratitude should remain constant. Thanksgiving shifts focus from lack to provision, from fear to trust. It is written that thanks giving is the will of heaven in every circumstance. 1 Thessalonians 5:18. Gratitude sustains joy and preserves peace. When peace governs the heart, decisions are clearer and faith remains strong. Even now, unseen movements are aligning circumstances, relationships, and opportunities. What feels delayed is being arranged with precision. The chosen are not forgotten, they are being positioned. Faith declares that all things work together for good for those who love and are called according to purpose. Romans 8:28. This working together includes challenges, lessons, and victories woven into a greater narrative. As you continue to walk, remain attentive, faithful, and grounded. Stay anchored in truth, responsive to guidance, and generous in spirit. The path ahead requires endurance, wisdom, and unwavering trust. What has been promised carries weight, and what is coming requires readiness. The journey continues, unfolding step by step, as faith deepens, vision sharpens, and purpose advances, moving forward with confidence, expectation, and quiet assurance that the work being done within you is preparing you for what lies just ahead, even as the unfolding continues and the next season begins to reveal itself in ways that call for steadfast faith, patient obedience, and an ever-deepening reliance on the truth that has guided you from the very beginning, shaping each step, refining each intention, and drawing you further into the unfolding promise that has not yet reached its full expression but is steadily moving closer with each faithful moment. The unfolding of promise often requires vigilance of heart and mind, because abundance arrives quietly before it arrives loudly. Long before resources change form, perspective must change posture. Those who are entrusted with increase learn to listen beyond noise, to discern whispers of instruction that shape decisions and protect destiny. The sacred writings affirm that guidance is promised to those who acknowledge direction in all their ways, with assurance that paths will be made straight. Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust is not passive, it is active alignment, choosing obedience even when understanding feels incomplete. There is a refining that happens when expectation meets responsibility. Many desire overflow, but fewer are willing to carry the weight that comes with it. Increase tests integrity, motives, and loyalty to truth. What was once prayed for becomes the very environment that reveals the condition of the heart. This is why inner transformation must keep pace with external expansion. As written, whoever is faithful in little is also faithful in much. Luke 16:10. Faithfulness is the currency that unlocks greater stewardship, proving readiness for what lies ahead. In the journey of the chosen, silence is often misunderstood. Quiet seasons are not abandonment, they are incubation. Seeds develop underground before breaking the surface. In stillness, roots deepen and strength is formed. The writings remind believers to be still and know that authority remains present and active. Psalm 4:6-10. Stillness sharpens discernment and steadies faith, allowing clarity to emerge without haste. Those who rush ahead often miss refinement that would have sustained them later. Provision aligned with purpose often challenges conventional thinking. It may arrive from unexpected sources, through unfamiliar channels, or in ways that defy human calculation. The stories of old recount resources appearing in barren places and sustenance flowing where scarcity once ruled. This reveals that supply is not limited by environment. The same word that brought provision in the wilderness continues to operate beyond visible constraints. As written, "My God shall supply all your need according to his riches in glory," Philippians 4:19. Need is met not from circumstance but from inexhaustible source. The chosen must guard against comparison, because comparison distorts timing and breeds discontent. Every assignment unfolds according to a specific design. Looking sideways distracts from listening forward. The writings caution against measuring oneself by others, calling such comparison unwise, 2 Corinthians 10:12. Peace is preserved when focus remains on individual instruction rather than external progress. What is delayed in one season may accelerate in another, unfolding suddenly after long preparation. As increase approaches, there is often an invitation to release what once provided security. Trust deepens when familiar supports are surrendered. This surrender is not loss, it is exchange. The scriptures speak of casting burdens with assurance of sustenance, Psalm 5:22. What is released in faith creates space for what is greater. Holding tightly to the past can restrict movement into the future, but open hands invite divine exchange. There is also a call to cultivate wisdom alongside resources. Wisdom governs decisions, protects relationships, and sustains longevity. Riches without wisdom lead to ruin, but wisdom with resources builds legacy. The writings elevate wisdom above riches, declaring it more precious than silver or gold. Proverbs 3:14-15. Wisdom teaches when to speak, when to wait, and when to act. It preserves humility and guards against impulsive choices that could compromise calling. Chosen ones are often positioned as bridges between generations. What flows into their hands is meant to impact beyond their lifetime. Legacy thinking replaces momentary gratification. The scriptures speak of righteous inheritance extending to children's children, Proverbs 13:22. This generational perspective shapes how resources are stewarded, how decisions are made, and how values are preserved. True wealth is measured not only by accumulation, but by the lasting impact it creates. As doors open, discernment regarding partnerships becomes crucial. Alignment matters more than opportunity. Not every open door leads to fulfillment of purpose. The writings counsel believe to walk together only where agreement exists, Amos 3:3. Unity of vision protects calling and preserves peace. Partnerships rooted in shared values multiply effectiveness, while misalignment drains strength and distracts focus. Faith also requires resilience. Challenges do not disappear with increase, they often change form. Pressure may intensify as responsibility expands. Yet strength is promised for every demand. The scriptures affirm that power is made perfect in weakness, 2 Corinthians 12:9. This paradox reveals that reliance, not self-sufficiency, sustains endurance. When limitations are acknowledged, grace supplies what effort cannot. The journey of the chosen includes moments of testing where values are examined. Integrity is revealed in choices made when no one is watching. The writings declare that integrity guides the upright. Proverbs 11:3. Guarding integrity ensures that increase does not erode character. What is built with compromise cannot be sustained, but what is built on truth remains secure. There is also a call to rest, even in seasons of productivity. Rest is not laziness, it is obedience. The rhythm of rest preserves clarity and prevents burnout. The scriptures model cycles of work and rest, reminding believers that rest restores the soul. Psalm 23:3. Those entrusted with much must learn to pause, reflect, and recalibrate, allowing renewal to strengthen endurance. Gratitude continues to act as a shield against entitlement. When gratitude fades, dissatisfaction grows. The writings consistently link thanksgiving with peace and stability. Philippians 4:6-7. Gratitude keeps perspective anchored, reminding the heart that every good gift originates from above. James 1:17. This remembrance fuels humility and sustains joy even as circumstances change. As influence expands, the chosen are often called to speak life into others. Words carry power to build or destroy. The scriptures affirm that life and death are in the power of the tongue. Proverbs 18:21. Speech guided by wisdom releases encouragement, direction, and hope. Those who have walked through refinement understand the value of words spoken with grace and truth. There is a refining of vision that occurs as seasons change. What once was clear may require adjustment, not abandonment. The writings teach that vision may tarry but will not fail. Patience is required while it unfolds. Habakkuk 2:3. Adjustments refine focus and sharpen effectiveness. Flexibility guided by truth allows growth without compromising core purpose. The chosen must remain teachable. No matter the level of increase, learning never ends. Pride resists instruction, but humility invites growth. The scriptures praise those who love discipline and gain knowledge through correction. Proverbs 12:1. Teachable hearts remain adaptable, receptive to wisdom that preserves longevity and relevance. As provision increases, generosity becomes a defining marker of faith. Giving reflects trust and reinforces alignment with purpose. The writings declare that cheerful giving is honored and multiplied. 2 Corinthians 9:7-8. Generosity keeps resources flowing and prevents stagnation. What flows outward creates channels for continued supply. The unseen realm continues to respond to faith-filled obedience. Movements beyond sight align with choices made in trust. The writings affirm that unseen realities are eternal while visible things are temporary. 2 Corinthians 4:18. This perspective anchors hope beyond immediate circumstances. What is unfolding carries eternal significance, shaping outcomes beyond present awareness. There are moments when courage is required to stand alone. Popular opinion does not always align with truth. The chosen must be willing to remain steadfast, even when misunderstood. The scriptures recount countless examples of those who stood firm despite opposition, trusting that vindication would come in due time. Courage rooted in conviction preserves integrity and advances purpose. As seasons turn, remembrance becomes essential. Recalling past deliverance strengthens present faith. The writings often call believers to remember former works, using remembrance as fuel for confidence. Psalm 77:11-12. Reflection on past faithfulness reassures the heart that future provision is secure. The journey continues with refinement of priorities. What once mattered may shift as purpose clarifies. Simplification often precedes expansion. The writings encourage laying aside weights that hinder progress, Hebrews 12:1. Removing distractions creates capacity for focus and endurance. Clear priorities protect energy and preserve momentum. Even now, preparation is accelerating. What seemed slow is gaining speed beneath the surface. Timing aligns with readiness, not impatience. The writings affirm that those who wait renew strength and rise with endurance, Isaiah 4:31. Waiting is active trust, strengthening resolve and sharpening discernment. As influence grows, accountability becomes increasingly important. Transparency safeguards integrity and fosters trust. The scriptures emphasize confession and accountability as pathways to healing and growth, James 5:16. Accountability anchors humility and prevents isolation, ensuring that increase does not lead to detachment. There is also a call to extend grace, remembering that progress is a journey for all. Compassion reflects understanding of personal refinement. The writings remind believers to bear with one another in love, Ephesians 4:2. Grace sustains relationships and preserves unity, especially as responsibilities expand. The unfolding promise continues to reveal layers of purpose previously unseen. Each step forward brings new understanding, deeper responsibility, and greater opportunity for impact. Faith remains the compass, guiding decisions and sustaining hope. What is being built extends beyond visible success, shaping legacy, influencing generations, and advancing truth in ways that continue to unfold, deepen, and expand as the journey presses forward, calling for continued trust, unwavering obedience, and a steadfast heart that remains open, ready, and attentive to what is still being revealed, formed, and prepared just ahead. As the path stretches onward, there is a deeper awareness that calling is not static but unfolding. What was once understood in fragments becomes clearer with obedience. Each step reveals another layer of responsibility, another measure of trust, another invitation to grow. The sacred writings speak of paths that shine brighter and brighter until full day, Proverbs 4:18. This progression is intentional. Light increases as capacity increases, ensuring that understanding never outpaces character. Those who are chosen often experience moments when faith must stand alone without visible affirmation. Applause fades, support shifts, and certainty must be rooted beyond human approval. This is where conviction is tested and refined. The writings remind believers that confidence rests not in people but in truth that remains unshaken. Psalm 118:8. When approval is removed, purity of motive is revealed, and the heart is anchored more deeply in purpose. Increase also brings exposure. What was hidden in obscurity becomes visible under influence. This visibility requires vigilance, because scrutiny intensifies as reach expands. The scriptures caution that those who desire leadership must be above reproach, 1 Timothy 3:2. Integrity become as not merely personal but public testimony. Guarding conduct, speech, and intention preserves credibility and honors the calling entrusted. There is a refining of desires that accompanies maturity. What once seemed essential loses its grip, while what truly matters gains clarity. The writings speak of setting affection on things above rather than temporary distractions, Colossians 3:2. This realignment frees the heart from chasing shadows and anchors it in substance. When desire aligns with purpose, peace governs decisions. The chosen are often called to navigate tension between faith and fear. Fear attempts to predict failure, while faith anticipates fulfillment. The writings repeatedly urge believers to walk by faith and not by sight. 2 Corinthians 5:7. Sight reports limitations, but faith responds to promise. This tension sharpens discernment, teaching the heart to choose trust over assumption. There is also the lesson of endurance. Breakthrough rarely arrives without resistance. Opposition does not negate calling, it often confirms it. The sacred accounts reveal that resistance frequently intensified just before deliverance. The writings encourage perseverance, assuring that endurance produces maturity and completeness. James 1:4. Those who endure without surrender develop resilience that sustains long-term impact. As provision increases, stewardship becomes more nuanced. Managing abundance requires discipline, foresight, and restraint. The writings emphasize wisdom in planning and diligence in management, comparing wise stewardship to storing provision in seasons of plenty. Proverbs 6:6-8. Preparedness protects against volatility and preserves stability. Stewardship honors the source of supply. There is also a call to maintain compassion. Success must never numb sensitivity to suffering. The heart that remembers its own journey remains tender toward others. The writings declare that those who show mercy receive mercy. Matthew 5:7. Compassion keeps influence human and accessible, preventing distance between calling and community. The chosen are often positioned as answers to prayers they once prayed themselves. What they longed for becomes what they provide. This shift from receiver to distributor marks maturity. The scriptures affirm that comfort received equips one to comfort others. 2 Corinthians 1:4. Pain transformed into purpose becomes a powerful instrument of healing. Discernment grows sharper as experience accumulates. Patterns become recognizable, warning signs more apparent. Wisdom whispers before trouble speaks loudly. The writings assure that wisdom cries out, offering guidance to those willing to listen. Proverbs 1:20-23. Listening protects from unnecessary detours and preserves momentum. As the journey continues, there is a renewed emphasis on obedience over convenience. Obedience may require uncomfortable choices, but it always leads toward alignment. The writings remind believers that obedience is better than say. Preface, 1 Samuel 15:22. Sacrifice without obedience lacks direction, but obedience carries promise. The chosen must also navigate seasons of pruning. What once produced fruit may need trimming to produce more. Pruning feels like loss but results in increase. The writings speak of branches being pruned so they may bear more fruit. John 15:2. Letting go creates space for growth. Resistance to pruning can hinder multiplication. Faith matures through repeated trust. Each fulfilled promise becomes a foundation for the next. Remembering past faithfulness strengthens present resolve. The writings often recount rehearsing deliverance to fuel expectation. Psalm 105:5. Memory becomes an anchor when uncertainty arises. As influence expands, humility must remain active. Humility is not self-deprecation, but accurate self-awareness. The writings encourage thinking soberly about oneself, recognizing gifts without exalting self. Romans 12:3. Humility keeps the heart teachable and the spirit receptive to correction. The chosen are also called to guard peace. Peace is not merely emotion, It is governance. Decisions made in peace often align with truth. The writings speak of peace ruling the heart, Colossians 3:15. When peace is disturbed, it signals a need for pause and prayerful reassessment. There is a refining of language as well. Words shape environments and influence outcomes. Mature faith chooses words that align with promise rather than problem. The scriptures urge speaking builds and encourages, Ephesians 4:29. Speech aligned with truth reinforces faith internally and externally. The journey includes moments of divine interruption, when plans are adjusted for greater purpose. Flexibility allows redirection without resentment. The writings show that plans may change, but purpose remains intact. Proverbs 19:21. Trusting redirection preserves peace when expectations shift. As responsibility increases, boundaries become essential. Not every request can be honored, and not every demand should be met. Wisdom discerns limits. Even those in sacred history withdrew at times to regain strength and clarity. The writings affirm the value of withdrawal for renewal. Luke 5:16. Boundaries protect calling from depletion. The chosen are often entrusted with influence over resources, people, or ideas. Influence amplifies impact, but also accountability. The writings warn that to whom much is given, much is required, Luke 12:48. Awareness of responsibility shapes careful decision-making and reinforces dependence on guidance. There is also joy woven into the journey. Joy is not dependent on circumstance, but rooted in hope. The writings declare that joy strengthens, Nehemiah 8:10. Joy sustains endurance and guards against weariness. Even in pressure, joy reminds the heart of purpose. The path forward requires continual renewal of the mind. Old patterns must be replaced with truth. The writings encourage transformation through renewal of thinking, Roma. NS12 capacity and aligns perception with reality shaped by promise. As seasons evolve, gratitude must be refreshed. Familiar blessings can become overlooked if gratitude wanes. The writings consistently call believers to give thanks in all circumstances. Psalm 107:1. Gratitude recalibrates focus and preserves wonder. The chosen often carry responsibility for reconciliation. They become bridges where division once existed. The writings speak of being entrusted with the ministry of reconciliation, 2 Corinthians 5:18. This role requires patience, empathy, and courage to pursue peace. There are moments when faith requires decisive action. Waiting seasons give way to movement seasons. Discernment recognizes when it is time to step forward. The writings encourage readiness to act in due season without growing weary, Galatians 6:9. Action aligned with timing produces fruit. The journey continues with refinement of trust. Trust shifts from outcomes to presence, from results to relationship. The writings emphasize walking faithfully regardless of outcome, knowing that presence remains constant, Psalm 23:4. This trust stabilizes the heart through uncertainty. As the unfolding continues, there is an awareness that purpose is larger than personal fulfillment. Individual obedience contributes to collective impact. The writings portray many members forming one body, each part essential, 1 Corinthians 12:12. Understanding this connection fosters ration rather than competition. Even now, unseen preparation continues. Alignments are forming, resistance is weakening, and readiness is increasing. The chosen are being strengthened quietly for visible impact later. The writings assure that those planted will flourish in due time. Psalm 92:12-13. Growth may be gradual, but it is certain. The road ahead invites continued surrender. Surrender is not weakness, but trust expressed in action. The writings encourage presenting oneself as a living offering, transformed through devotion. Romans 12:1. Surrender keeps the heart aligned and responsive. As influence and provision converge, stewardship of time becomes critical. Time is a resource that cannot be recovered. The writings urge redeeming time wisely. Ephesians 5:16. Intentional use of time maximizes impact and preserves balance. The journey does not promise absence of storms, but it assures presence within them. Storms reveal foundations and strengthen resolve. The writings remind believers that endurance through trials produces hope. Romans 5:3-4. Hope anchors the soul beyond circumstance. The chosen continue forward, shaped by faith, refined by obedience, strengthened through endurance, and guided by wisdom. Each step carries purpose, each pause holds preparation, and each season contributes to a greater unfolding that has not yet reached its fullness, but continues to expand, deepen, and move forward, calling for unwavering trust, attentive listening, and a heart that remains open to what is still being formed, revealed, and aligned as the journey presses onward into what remains ahead. Now, as this journey of words draws toward its closing breath, let the heart remain awake and the spirit remain attentive. What has been spoken is not merely encouragement, but a summons to awareness, faithfulness, and readiness. The chosen are not defined by title or possession, but by obedience, humility, and trust refined through time. What is unfolding is greater than material increase alone. It is the shaping of a steward, the forming of a vessel able to carry influence without losing reverence. As it is written, he who began a good work will carry it on to completion. Philippians 1:6. The promise has not stalled, the process has not failed, and the preparation has not been wasted. So remain steadfast, rooted, and responsive. Guard your heart, align your steps, and hold fast to truth as you move forward. Let faith guide decisions, let gratitude anchor perspective, and let wisdom govern every increase. What lies ahead requires the very refinement you have walked through, and what is coming will meet you at the measure of your readiness. Walk on with confidence, not rushing, not retreating, but advancing with quiet assurance, knowing that every step has been seen, every tear counted, every act of obedience recorded, and that in due time, the fullness of what has been promised will stand as testimony, unfolding exactly as it was always meant to be.